Hey everyone, happy Friday. We're back for another Soultry Hangout.
Yes, welcome, welcome. And this hangout is really special because we are celebrating pleasure. So, if you
Yes.
didn't know, yesterday, August 18th, is World Pleasure Day. So, we were celebrating yesterday, and today we wanted to just share with you all as well during our hangout.
Super excited for this. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Alyssa,
And I'm Tony.
and we are the Soultry Sisters.
Yeah, so with our hangouts, we always like to start with everyone sharing where they're tuning in from and what they're sipping on. So I will go first. So I am tuning in from the DC area, and what I'm sipping on is our pleasure punch, which I'll be sharing with y'all in a few moments of what is inside.
Yes. I am tuning in from San Diego, and I am sipping on me and Tony, our beloved sparkling drinks from Trader Joe's. So because I knew Tony was going to be making like a mocktail with some strawberry in it, I'm drinking the rhubarb and strawberry soda. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you're tuning in live, you can comment below what you're sipping on, where you're tuning in from, and all that good stuff. So yeah, we're excited. It's still summertime, so we're like enjoying the summer weather, the energy of the summer. And because it's a World Pleasure Day, we wanted to just take some time to celebrate.
Yes, yesterday was World Pleasure Day, and I just wanted to quickly share what I did yesterday to celebrate my pleasure, and then Tony, you can do after.
Mhm.
So, for those of you who are a part of our Sultry Fam community, you know that we are doing our monthly Step and Stride challenges. It's our walking challenge where we welcome and invite our community to walk with us a mile each day. So, I took a walk with my furry daughter, Missy, and we walked to the park. And what we did differently is that we sat in the park and we brought our waters and we sat under a beautiful tree and we took some time to take in our surroundings. Usually during my walk, I'm either listening to a podcast, music, or talking to Tony. So it was nice to really be present with Missy and take some time to sit at the park, which we never do. So that's how I celebrated World Pleasure Day.
Nice. Yeah. So I celebrated the day making the drink so I can know what I wanted. But the drink is actually kind of a variation of something I've been sipping on recently for the summer as a refresher. But I wanted to, perfect that. So when I shared it with y'all, then y'all be like, ooh, this is good.
Yes.
So that was nice.
Another thing with celebrating pleasure, we wanted to shout out Iane Rivera, who started World Pleasure Day 3 years ago. And we had the pleasure to embark on this journey with her with bringing soul care to the first World Pleasure Day as well as a second. And we wanted to, you can check out her website below. It's on the ticker. I'll also share it in the comments, but also I wanted to share her beautiful principles of pleasure. So these are 5 principles that were crafted to bring attention to the deeper nature of pleasure and highlight the value and influence on our overall well-being. So let us know which one of these principles resonate with y'all. So pleasure is our birthright. Pleasure is a compass. Embodying pleasure is a path to fulfillment. We have the freedom to consciously experience pleasure, and pleasure is vital to our physical, mental, emotional well being. And you know, Sultry Sister sits right there on that fifth principle.
Yeah, so I love those principles from Iane, because I feel like it really does capture like the holistic aspect of pleasure. Because I think, sometimes people associate pleasure with just like sex or sexuality, but it can be so much more expansive than that. And that's what we'll be sharing today in this live, about like our experiences, what that means for us, and how we are celebrating and all that good stuff. Um, Because yeah, I think it's great for us to like share those principles to kind of outline like what pleasure can mean to people. And it's just like to start the discussion. Like that's not the end all be all like definitions, right? Like as
Mhm.
culture, we have our own definitions as individuals. Alyssa and I both have our own separate definitions. But it's just kind of like the start of the conversation for people and folks to start thinking of pleasure in a different way. So, yes, that's a great segue to our question below. So we wanted to ask you all who's joining in live, what does pleasure mean to you? So you can comment what that means. If you're watching the replay as well afterwards, still comment. We always go back and check out the comments to see what y'all all say.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll turn it over to Alyssa to share first.
For me, pleasure means presence. Whenever I've been in a very pleasurable moment, I feel like I've always been present. So even like this morning when I was taking my shower, after I took my shower and I was putting on my lavender lotion, I was like really taking the time to be present in my lotion practice. And I'm like, wow, like it's such a different experience. Like one of the principles that Iane shared, like pleasure is an experience, like a conscious experience. So that to me, that's kind of what makes me helps me identify, oh, this is a pleasurable moment when
Mhm.
I'm able to be present. Like if it's not pleasurable, I'm not able to be present. That's kind of my
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I feel like for me, it's also similar where it's like being present, really embodying the moment as well. So, whatever that is, like feeling the senses. So, I think for me, pleasure also taps into my sensuality. So, like
Mhm.
feeling the senses. So, like what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what I'm hearing, tasting, taking all of that in. And of course, sometimes different things will speak louder than others. And there's this quote I wanted to share actually, from Adrienne Marie Brown from her Somatic Ecologies book, because I recently listened to her podcast, and it was talking about awe, like when you're in awe. And I feel like pleasure to me is when I am able to like really embody those moments of being in awe. So the quote is capitalism is ideologically threatened by experiences of awe not only because awe asks us to reanimate the other, but also because awe can't exist in the presence of urgency and scarcity. And so I felt like that quote really shares what like pleasure is, right? Like you can't like when you're feeling pleasure, you're not in a rush. You're present, like Alyssa said, and there's no scarcity. Pleasure is an abundance feeling, an abundance mindset. So I feel like that quote was really on point for like what we're talking about today in this live.
I love that. I love how you're bringing up the word awe because I'm
Hmm.
currently reading the book Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. And when she was talking about awe and wonder, she was talking about when you're in awe of something, like you're like you're taking a step back and looking at the whole thing. So
Hmm.
we're talking about holistic, right? Like so when you're in awe, you're seeing the whole thing, the whole being, the whole universe. So for me, I then related that to how we talk about living a holistic life and like relating that how are we able to find those moments of awe or be in those moments of awe and sit in it versus fleeting, because sometimes I feel like in capitalism it pushes us out of that state
Hmm.
versus allowing us to sit in it. So when we talk about pleasure principles, pleasure activism, all aspects of pleasure, I think they all have a through line of like sitting in something versus like
Hmm.
having a fleeting or returning to it, like having a practice of it.
Yeah. And I think also pleasure is one of those things that I think sometimes people don't think about like think regular everyday things are pleasure, right? Like if you eat a meal that you really enjoy, like when you're just like, like this is good, like that's experiencing pleasure. When you go outside and you feel the sun just like glistening on your body, you're just like, like that's pleasure. So all those things as well. Like when you hear your favorite song, you're like, oh, I gotta dance to this. So I think sometimes too to like not get so stuck in like what all these like technical definitions or whatever is, to really just embrace those moments as pleasure and to invite more of that in your life. Like that's the whole season I'm in right now. It's just like a pleasure centered life, because of like where I'm at in my journey. But that has been really empowering to hear everyone's like different definitions of
Yes.
pleasure.
And now that I think this is a great segue too to go into our following question is what are some of our favorite pleasure practices? So I'll let you lead on this one, Tony.
Yeah, so for me, one of them that I really enjoy doing all the time is dancing. Of course, like Alyssa and I are dancers, but not necessarily like choreography, but just like turning on like a playlist that I love and just like dancing, shaking my ass, all that kind of stuff I enjoy. And with our Soultry community, we've been doing our Step in Stride challenge. And so we have a new playlist, our Hot Girl Walks playlist. So that has been part of my pleasure practice of like just turning on that playlist when I'm on my walks, and it just makes me want to dance and do our strut videos that we do. That's one thing I enjoy doing. Another pleasure practice I enjoy is being in nature. So whether that's going for my walks, especially like walking around the trail that I have that has more like trees and stuff, so I can feel nature. I see like butterflies, birds, there's like flowers, I see different plants around me. That's been a big one that I've been doing this part of my journey. And I like to read outside as well too, because I read sometimes inside, but when I do it outside, I feel like it's just a more pleasurable experience.
Mhm.
Um, and I've also enjoyed making herbal teas. So that's like a variation of what I'll be sharing with you all today as well. So that has been something I've enjoyed as well, as like tapping into herbalism, tapping into like holistic healing and those types of practices.
I love that, and I can't wait to hear more about that drink, Tony. I'll share a few of my favorite pleasure practices that I have been doing as of late, and one is self-massage, y'all.
Ooh.
And that has gone into like my lotion practice, like just squeezing my arms and touch. That has been one of my
Mhm.
like big pleasure practices right now because I am in a show. So taking care of my body and finding ways to really relax has been pleasurable. I bought a foot spa, y'all. I soak my
Very indulging,
very
indulging in your
indulgent.
pleasure.
I soak my feet. I've been rolling my feet, all things feet, feet, feet. Another pleasure practice has been the playlist. I have been
Yeah.
loving our Soultree playlist. I've been loving like just also just making sounds with my own voice. Like Tony Lowe's, I love a little doo-wop, doop-a-dat, doop. Knows I love a little scat. So it brings me pleasure. It's just kind of like being in my body and like moving it.
Mhm. Here, I'm gonna get the link for the playlist to share with y'all since we keep talking about it. I'm like, they're
Yes,
probably gonna
like
be
what are
like,
you doing
where
on this
is this
playlist?
link?
Where is
So let
it?
me add it.
We need to add the new Megan Thee Stallion song,
Oh
Her.
yeah.
That
Mhm.
one, y'all. That's gonna be put on the playlist. Tony's gonna add it. I'm gonna add it. One of us will add it, and we're gonna be uh, uh, adding another two step to the playlist.
So yes, check out. I just added it to the comments. Check out our Hot Girl Walks playlist. It's been really fun. We've been adding more and more songs. So like the playlist is like 4 hours right now, but it's gonna continue to grow because we just love music. We love dancing. Oh, but continue. You were sharing.
Oh, I was just talking about how I enjoy moving my body. I don't have anything more to say
Mhm.
besides
Nice.
also a big part of my pleasure practice has been like spraying my pillow before I go to bed.
Ooh.
I have this like nighttime spray. It's delightful. And so that kind of
Ooh.
Tony coming back to the senses. I feel
Yeah.
like that has been whenever I'm thinking cooking. So Sultry Mama's
Mhm. Okay,
is
yes. I've
is
been
the
cooking a lot too.
I've been cooking a lot of different foods, working with a lot of eggplant. So trying
Ooh.
to manifest, you know what I'm saying? More
Say But I've been cooking a lot more too, and what's been a part of my pleasure practice is going to the farmer's market, like, on the
Mhm.
weekends to get, like, the fresh produce, like, even the strawberries I have in here are from the farmer's market, and I'll share more about the ingredients and stuff. but that has made the process and the act of cooking a lot more pleasurable because I'm just like, I get to see the fruits and veggies like in the stand and like pick the ones I want and like see what I want to eat. And then when I'm eating it too, I feel like it brings more gratitude because I'm just like, wow, like I got this from the farmer's market, like they got it from the farm, like all that kind of stuff. And then also, I was going to say another part of my pleasure practice has been wearing my waist beads again. Because I got waist beads. The ones I'm wearing right now, I got in Uganda, like back in 2019. But they're the kind that have like a little clasp so I can take them on and off, which not everyone like believes in having waist beads like that, but I like that I can have them on or off. So right now, this past month, I've been wearing them, and so I like feel like for me, it reminds me of just like it's like a sexy accessory to me, and I feel like it just reminds me of like my femininity and just like that energy of like, ooh, like people don't have to see it, like I can have it hidden within my clothes, but I also can choose to have it as an accessory outside. So I've been liking that too. It's like sometimes when I'm working out, I'm like, ooh, let me have it outside my leggings. And it's just like this cute new energy that it's bringing that I've really enjoyed as well. And I feel like it's a pleasure practice that's also tied to like my African roots and things like that. So yeah, we Alyssa and I we always just like trying new things, like spicing up our lives, remixing things. So that's been nice. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And to close out this first section of us talking about pleasure, I thought I'd share an excerpt from the Pleasure Activism book. What do
Yes.
you think, Tony?
Yes. Pleasure activism. So if you're not familiar, it's by Adrienne Marie Brown. She's amazing. And yeah, Alyssa's gonna share an excerpt.
Yeah, and on the ticker, I have the part of the book in which I'm reading from. It's part of the outro. And so I begin. Pleasure reminds us to enjoy being alive and on purpose. I love that. Just period.
Mm.
And on purpose. Okay. Again and again, I have realized that our misery only serves those who wish to control us, to have our existence be in service of their own. Again and again, I have had to surrender to the truth and freedom of pleasure. That's where the activism part comes.
Mhm.
True pleasure, joy, happiness, and satisfaction has been the force that helps us move beyond the constant struggle that helps us live and generate futures beyond this dystopic present, futures worthy of our miraculous lives.
Mhm.
Pleasure embodied, connected pleasure is one of the ways we know when we are free. So let me say that again. Pleasure embodied, connected. Pleasure is one of the ways we know when we are free. That way, that we are always free, that we always have the power to co create the world. Pleasure helps us move through the times that are unfair, through grief and loneliness, through the terror of genocide, or days when the demands are just overwhelming. Pleasure heals the places where our hearts and spirit get wounded. Love that.
Mhm.
Pleasure reminds us that even in the dark, we are alive. Pleasure is a medicine for the suffering that is absolutely promised in life. Yes. So it's
Yes,
a medicine,
I love that. So that's in pleasure activism. Definitely read that book. That's like just it's such a liberating and empowering book. To if you don't already think in these ways or have these perspectives, it does have different sections to kind of guide you through the pleasure activism approach. But I just find it really affirming, and I appreciate like hearing that part of the book now because we originally read it a year ago, but
Mhm.
hearing it now when I'm in my pleasure herbalism course. Um, just last week in our course, Bede, our facilitator, mentioned this book that's about like pleasure and grief. And it was talking about like especially the state of the world now. That a lot of times, we get stuck in feeling the like negative aspects of that, of like, oh, like everything, all these negative things are happening at the same time, yada, yada, yada. And sometimes we feel like we can't access pleasure, but in that book, she shared in our class. I'll have to see if I can pull up the book. But, anyways, in that book, it was mentioning how even in history, right? Even through genocides and, slavery, all types of things, there was pleasure being happen like pleasure happening because
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
people were having kids. Like I know sometimes that wasn't always a pleasure act, but some people in our communities were, indulging in sex and things like that for pleasure. Also, they
Right.
were cooking for each
Mhm,
other for pleasure. They were dancing, right? We have still our cultural practices like dance, music that were preserved. So all of that, even in these like atrocities and oppression, that when we think back to our ancestors and our elders, there were still pleasure practices. And
yes.
so that helped me reframe because I know sometimes I get really like down and like a lot of anxiety and stuff about the state of the world. But that helped me kind of reframe that like pleasure is needed to like
Mhm.
get through this, right? Like I don't now I'm trying to like move
Absolutely.
away
Ab
from resilience. So it's not I'm not trying to say it's
Yeah.
resilient, but like that's just how we move through
Well,
life is to still have
y
pleasure.
I wanna add to that, and I love that you're bringing us and that's the reason why I wanted to share that excerpt because I wanted us to not just get caught up in, like, "Pleasure's fun, yeah, yeah," like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. For us, Black, indigenous people of color, like, pleasure means something so much more than just some,
Mhm.
like, thing that is tied to consumerism, luxury,
Mhm.
yada, yada, yada. No, this pleasure practice is a part of our resistance. It's a part of what has led us to be here still, um,
Mhm.
and why a lot of our influence is very prevalent. Let's just leave it there. Um,
Yeah.
I also wanted to share, Tony, like for me, like just anecdote moment. I can be a very
Mhm.
anxious person. I can have a lot of anxiety around like having so many things. Like I love doing all the things, but sometimes I feel overwhelmed. And in the times that
Mhm.
I feel overwhelmed, that's when my pleasure practice is so important. Like I took myself to see Nope on Monday on my like half day off, and so those are ways that like I know that's like going somewhere obviously, but for me I wanted to insert a time that was dedicated to me being present.
Mhm.
I really really wanted to see this movie, so I took myself on a little date and that really helped to like give me a moment to like just have to take on the rest of the week because I'm just going through a lot of moving parts in my life. So I wanted to insert how like when you feel super stressed and like you don't have time, like what are ways we can make time for pleasure, whether it's breathing, watching a movie. There's a range of ways we can like incorporate pleasure in our practice. But I want to move on to asking you, Tony, you mentioned herbalism. And so I want to ask you like what is pleasure herbalism? But like specifically before we get into that, what led you to be interested in herbalism?
Yes. So, what made me interested in like starting my herbalism journey was, well, I guess I've always kind of been interested in like nature and plants, and I've always felt connected to nature. And then throughout my journey, I started delving into different holistic wellness practices. And, so I do yoga, like all these different things. And then herbalism kept popping up. Like my best friend Jada, like she like got certified as an herbalist, and like different things were popping up for me that brought up herbalism. So I was like, oh, okay, let me tap into that. And then it was especially during the pandemic, Hood Herbalism, which is the organization that I've been doing my herbalism courses with. They're based in LA area. But during the pandemic, they had this like COVID first aid herbalism, like Zoom course or like a offering that they had. So I attended that, and it was like essentially kind of what people also call kitchen medicine, like what you can use in your kitchen, like garlic, orange peels, lemon, those types of things that you already have, like how you can use that for, your well-being, especially in a pandemic. And so that really sparked my interest, like, oh wow, like we can use like the food, the herbs, like the things around us to be well. And then I learned that they had like an intro course. So I did their intro course in the winter of 2020, which really just shares like, the importance of developing a connection with the plants. And so that's really how Hood Herbalism, their approach to herbalism is. It's not necessarily for us to then take these plants, like a really, it's going against all like the colonial Western ways of medicine and things like that. So it's not like you're going in nature and taking this plant and then using it for medicine. What we learn in our approach is really to have a relationship with the plants, and they call them
Mhm.
our plant ancestors, like our plant
Yes.
cesters. And so they all, have been here for us and around us this whole time. And our elders and ancestors have worked with plants, especially, if you're BIPOC, like our cultural roots are really, really tied into that. So that is kind of what we learned. So I was just like, wow, like I love nature. Like I've always felt deeply connected to nature. So then after that course, I was like, I love this. Like I want to learn more. And then this spring, I finished our pleasure herbalism course. And since it was the first time our instructor, Betta, had done it, then she had offered our cohort to do the second round as well. So I'm currently in the second round too, because I just love the course. I just love everything herbalism. And then I especially love this course's topic area of pleasure, because it was so pleasure herbalism in itself is similar to our regular herbalism courses, where it's like about connecting with nature and the plants and using and asking the plants to use their medicine to heal us. But it has this special through line, the thread throughout the whole course is how we can connect with plants to experience pleasure, to tap into our sensuality, to use it for like embodiment, for healing, and then liberation through pleasure practices, essentially.
Mm.
So in that course, we not only made medicine with plants, but we also did like somatic movement practices. So similar to if you're familiar with Soulscape that we do at Soultry, we did sessions like that. We also talked about just like the power of like flowers and like the power of being outside. And pleasure herbalism also can kind of coexist with like what do people call it, like ecology
Yes.
practices. Yeah, so it's like
Mhm.
really just being in nature and feeling pleasure from being out in nature. So that's really the root of our class, is like Bette would say like, oh, just go outside and put your feet in like mud. Like go outside and touch the grass, touch a tree, smell flowers, and like put your whole face in the flower and stuff like that. So we do talk about like making medicine and things, but a lot of it is just being in right relationship with plants. So we also talk about like asking Mother Nature for consent. So the class also talks about like what is consent, what is desire, what is pleasure. So it's a lot of not only like actual plants, but also like our whole mindset of what pleasure is. And we take pleasure out of just only being about sex and sexuality. Like we do talk about that as well. We've talked about like what how sex and all of that can be like enhanced with plant magic. But it's also like you can experience pleasure without that, because our space is also friendly to people who identify as like aromantic, asexual, things like that too. So it doesn't have to be centered around that. But it's really liberating class. I enjoyed it so much. I'm excited to be in the second round. It's just a beautiful class to talk about like nature. We get to like think about the elements as well. We talk about like water, earth, air, fire, and how tapping into those elements we can experience different pleasure
Mhm.
um, practices and pleasure experiences. And a lot of the class too, we talk about creating rituals around pleasure, and keeping those promises to ourselves
I love that. I'm like, "Man, you make me wanna
too.
take the class just to be a part of that community." Like, I mean, I felt like
It's
I've gotten
amazing.
some, like, residual effect because you've taken class, because you shared some of the material that you've gotten from the class, but it sounds like an amazing, pleasurable experience to
Yes.
go through that.
Mhm. I love it, and, like, Hood Herbalism too, if you all watching, like, check it out. It's a queer, trans, BIPOC-centered space, and so I love that as well. It's a really, like, open, freeing space. I just love the community, and people are just able to show up as they are, and, like, we all learn from each other as well. So yeah, I've learned so much, and I'm learning so much more as well. Like we do talk about like pleasure activism in the class a lot, and the other book I wanted to share with y'all is spiritual herbalism.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so Karen Rose, she's based out of Brooklyn, New York, and she has an apothecary, so a place where you can get herbs, you can get like holistic wellness stuff in Brooklyn. So I hope one day I can check it out. But yeah, this book talks about like herbalism, but also how it's tied to spirituality. So she specifically ties it to like the Orishas and
Mhm.
Yoruba spiritual practices. But she also just like there's herbs here for pleasure, for sexual health, and for heart health and all types of stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it too because we talk about this in my class too, just like the expansiveness of how you can use herbs to tap into your like wellness.
I want to follow up this because if y'all are watching, you're like, herbalism, this is the first time I'm hearing about it.
Oh
Tony,
yeah.
can you like herbalism 101
Yeah.
walk us through the various ways we can interact with herbs and like, you know, uh I know you mentioned it's in your drink, but can you kind of walk us through like how one would, you know, process?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's different ways that people can, practice herbalism. So essentially, herbalism is, using plants, herbs around us to to heal ourselves essentially. So a lot of people also say like herbal medicine is a thing as well. So like you're using plants and being in connection with plants to heal yourself or to bring out whatever you want. Honestly, it could be anything. But some common ways. One is like just being outside in nature is
Okay.
like practicing herbalism and the way I practice. So it could be connecting with nature. So being like going on a walk through,
Walking barefoot?
yeah, but even just like going on a walk through like a
Okay.
trail with like trees and like noticing like the plants and trees around you. Also cooking. Like a lot of people don't think about this, but we use
Ah,
herbs and
spices too.
yeah, yeah, we use like herbs and stuff in the food that we eat. And it's
Yeah.
also like a lot of times if you are saying like, "Oh, I wanna use herbs and herbal medicine to, like, cure or, like, treat different things that you're experiencing," a lot of times it starts within, right? So instead of applying an oil or, like, something on top to ingest it, right? So you can eat food that's, like, nourishing and has those herbal properties. Tea, like, also, like, drinks and tea is common too. Many of us drink tea and things like that and don't realize that that's like herbal
Really?
medicine, and that's like the main way I practice like herbalism is through tea medicine. Um, but it can range from a bunch of different things. Also, if you take baths, you can
Yep.
add herbs to your baths. If you've done yoni steams or down there steams, you can add herbs, or facial steams too. You can do that. There's many different
Yeah,
ways, but
I
those
was
are like the most common ways that people might not realize that they're actually like using
I
herbs in
like
that
how
way.
I like how you broke it down because I was, gonna ask and I was segueing into how from, Mystic Soul Boutique
Mhm.
in Oceanside, one of our favorite crystal shops in
Yeah.
Oceanside, I purchased their, like, their tea roll like, their rolls that are, like, of tea, like,
Oh, yeah.
I'll smoke the herb I don't like, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, you can smoke herbs too. So, like, people think smoking in generally just has to be like tobacco or marijuana, but you can smoke any herb, honestly. So, yeah, you can get dried peppermint, dried lavender,
that's what
dried mugwort is something that people smoke a lot as well. And it also depends on like your cultural practices too. Like different cultures have different ways of using plant medicine and different methods. But yeah, if you enjoy like the ritual of smoking, then you might want to start adding in like dried lavender, dried
yes,
peppermint, dried mugwort, things like that, and see how that affects you.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah, so people like to do
It's
that as
very
well.
relaxing with the lavender
Mhm.
one, I'm like, you know
Yeah, especially for like folks who bleed who might have like pain and stuff
Mhm.
during their menstrual cycle, like smoking, like herbs can also be a way to kind of calm that.
They have a
But yeah,
specific
that's
they have a
common.
specific one that's for, periods
Mhm.
cycle.
Yes. So
Oh, yeah.
people can do that. Also, if you, yeah, so there's like teas and things like that. And then, of course, you can do more like traditional herbal medicine and like create like oils. You can create salves and all of those good things. So I will start to venture into making oils and stuff. That's why I took the pleasure herbalism course because I really wanted to make my own like sensual oil. Because that's something that I enjoy using, and I was like, "Oh, I want to make my own." So yeah, so I call myself like a community herbalist. Um, and that's just because like for me, I practice for my community and like I do
Mhm.
a lot more like kitchen herbalism. Like I use like what like scraps from what I'm already eating to like turn it into a tea or put it into my food.
Immunity.
But yeah, but there's also people who, you know, have certifications who are like certified herbalists. Like there's also technically like clinical herbalists. So if people go to school and have like more so um certification so they can heal like certain ailments. So people can go to them, you know, experiencing different conditions and then the clinical herbalist can more so heal them specifically for those ailments. But also where I learned hood herbalism is very like community first, BIPOC centered, and like divesting from colonialism. So like, you know, certifications can kind of be a colonial mindset. Like in all of our courses with hood herbalism, we don't receive like a certificate because Bede really believes in like doing the work is just, you know, you healing yourself first, then you start to heal, you know, your family, then your greater community and all of that. It's not necessarily tied to like, oh, I have a paper now, so now I'm an herbalist. She's like, we all can do this.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's where the word practitioner comes from. Like practitioner comes from the
Hmm.
fact that you're practicing, you're doing something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with the certification. I feel like sometimes our society can get too big on the certifications versus like the work of actually being in practice in community. I love how you talked about being
Hmm.
in community, even if it
Hmm.
means in community with your surroundings and the plants
Hmm.
around. So segueing
Yeah.
to so you wanted to say something else.
Oh, I was just gonna say I didn't mention, but then I just got accepted to Hood Herbalism's herbal medicine for birth support course. So I'll be
Ooh,
starting that in the fall. Because if you don't know, thank you. I just started my doula certification with my new job. So I will be a doula, like a full spectrum. And so I like wanted my practice to with doula care to incorporate herbs, and that's I was like, ooh, I think this is like my thing is gonna be
yeah, you're
herbalism for like birth support. So I'm
mhm,
excited for that course because we're gonna be talking about like preconception, pregnancy, postpartum, and then also like abortion care and things like that, like how you
mhm.
can use herbs for all of those things. Um, so yeah, I think herbalism is like me tapping into like my higher purpose. Like if I could be just with plants all day, I would.
Yes.
So slowly I am making that my lifestyle. But yeah, like also herbalism to me, like why I started, like at first I wanted to connect to like our African ancestry
Mhm,
through herbalism, like with like spiritual herbalism and things like that. And then I realized as well that our Filipino heritage is also rooted in
mhm,
herbalism, because Alyssa and I like had some products from Herbalaria based in LA, and then we recently met Dr. Kat from
mhm.
the
Yep, yeah,
Lueb Center
mhm, the Loop Center.
in in San Diego. And Dr. Kat is a Filipino woman who's amazing and does Ilo,
Mhm.
um, indigenous Filipino healing. And so yeah, in this part of my journey, I'm just like herbalism, everything is my jam.
What's great about Elode is it incorporates herbalism and
Mhm.
spiritualism all in the same, so
Exactly. So
great
again,
gift
with
of
the whole theme of
introduction.
spiritual herbalism.
I mean, I just feel like, pleasure practice, herbalism, they're all like gateways to reaching our higher self. Like, I feel like you
Mhm.
kind of just said like your purpose and like pleasure, like the quote from Adrienne Marie Brown was just talking about like finding your purpose,
Mhm.
pleasure on purpose. So I love that for you, Tony. I'm so excited. Like I'm just in awe, seriously, in awe of your the evolution of your relationship to plants. Because you've always been like a
Mhm.
plant child. Like you've always been, always taking pictures of plants, always pausing to look at plants. So it's always been a part of you. But to see you incorporate it and how you service the community is just so beautiful. I'm so proud of you.
Mm, thank you.
Speaking of that, can you put us onto this drink you made? So
Oh
I'm
yes, because I've been drinking. I've been trying not to
like,
drink it too
let's
fast.
transition to this drink.
Yes.
Okay, tell
So
us more about this pleasure punch, Tony.
yes, so we
Okay,
wanted to
herbalism.
celebrate. Yes, we wanted to celebrate World Pleasure Day with a drink, and so I created this pleasure punch, and so here it is. If you haven't noticed already, so I had more in my cup earlier. Well, let me just add more of this sparkling, so then it will look
Oops,
more.
that was me.
Um, but yeah, so this is our pleasure punch. So the main ingredients are fresh strawberries that I got from the farmer's market. Actually, we had dried hibiscus, lemon, and tulsi or holy basil. And so I wanted to create this punch that's like refreshing for the summer, that has these nutritious and medicinal properties, but also is just like a nice, pleasurable drink. And so I put the instructions up for you all if you want to create it at home. So I first boiled hot water. So if you have a tea kettle or something like that, you can do that. And while your pot is boiling, so yeah, I was not gonna do it on camera because I was like, that's just gonna be a lot. But yeah, so while your pot is boiling, then you can grab your strawberries, wash them, all that stuff, and then cut them. But instead of throwing the tops of the strawberry out, okay, now my strawberries are at the bottom of this. But instead of throwing out the tops or putting it in compost, you save the tops of your strawberries, and put them in your tea strainer. So I can show you my tea strainer here. So I have it. It's just I got mine from just like Daiso, so like the Japanese 99-cent store. But I have a couple other ones too. But you'll put the tops of your strawberry in the tea strainer, and then I also grabbed um, my tulsi. So that's holy basil. So you can see I have these like green leaves. So that's the holy basil. And then I added the dried hibiscus leaves as well. So that's what it looks like here. And then I got these dried hibiscus actually a year ago when I was in El Salvador. But you can find them in your local shops, like whole like herbal shops. You can find them in health food stores, and you could also go to just like a like Latino Latine market or like a cultural market and find them. And so the dried hibiscus leaves sometimes are called like jamaica in Spanish and stuff like that. And I love hibiscus because it's tied not only to our African roots, but also our Filipino roots. So both of our cultures use hibiscus in drinks and in food and stuff like that. So I always add hibiscus to things. And then once you have your strawberry tops, your tulsi leaves, and your dried hibiscus in your tea strainer, I then squeezed a half a lemon through the strainer as well. So then it would catch any seeds that come out. And so you can do more lemon if you want, but half a lemon is fine actually. And then once you have all of that in your mug, then you will pour your boiling water on top and you'll let that steep. So when I mean steep, you don't only leave the cup like this while it's boiling, you want to cover it. So you'll cover. See, this is just DIY sustainability. I'm using like the top of a Tupperware. So I just add that to the top of my cup and leave that there for 20 minutes. So you'll add all your herbs to your tea strainer or whatever you have. Leave that covered for 20 minutes. And while that is brewing, you will get your glass, and then the strawberries, the regular parts of the strawberries that you like normally eat, you can put that into the cup with some ice, and then you can wait for it to cool. If you have ice in your cup, you could actually pour the hot tea into the cup already, and the ice will just chill it as you go. Because I actually don't really like to drink too cold drinks, anyways. Um, but once your tea is done steeping, you'll take your cover off, and then you can add honey to taste if you like as well, depending on how much like tulsi you use, because that
Mhm.
might be bitter to some people. So I like to use honey and lemon to cut some of that bitterness. So once you add your honey, you'll continue to let it cool. And I get my honey from my local farmers market as well, because the bees and the honey from your local
Mhm.
area will be able to boost your immune system because, the allergens, the pollen from your local area would like be in the honey. So you'll be able to increase your immunity.
Yes,
Um,
I get my honey from Village Rock Shop, and they source it from a
yes,
local person.
exactly.
Yeah.
So once your tea is to the sweetness that you like and it's cool, you can pour it. So I poured it from the big cup into the small cup with your ice and your strawberries. And then to make
Mm.
it special because it's a summer pleasure punch and we're indulging in ourselves, I added the gourmet Trader Joe's sparkling green tea, pineapple
Woo.
juice, but you can also just add just regular sparkling water, but I was like, "We're gonna do it tropical." Look at me, I'm in, like, this tropical outfit. I was like, "We're gonna get the tropical sparkling drink." So then once your tea is in the cup with your ice and your strawberries, then you pour in your sparkling water or juice and you sip away, and then that is our pleasure punch. And so
I
it's
am
really easy. Yeah, it's really easy. If you want more than one cup at a time, you can just brew it in a bigger like pot on your stove. But I feel like most people are used to making a cup of tea. And so I was like, let's just do a cup of our pleasure punch. And so it's delicious. So y'all should try it at home.
Yes, let us know if you do end up trying it. Please tag us. Um,
Yay.
Tony will share the recipe to our newsletter subscribers. So if you are
Yes.
part of our newsletter, make sure you get on that list before we send out our newsletter this week because you will get the recipe. And if you're like, if I still don't get it, we're also going to include it in the show notes as well on our YouTube channel. So either
Yes.
way, if you're catching the replay via YouTube or part of our newsletter, you're going to get that pleasure punch recipe. Thank you so much,
Yay.
Tony.
Thanks. But yeah, I'll share a little bit about the ingredients.
Yeah.
So yeah, so with hibiscus, like I mentioned, like I love it not only because it's tied to our cultural roots, but hibiscus is actually really great for cooling, to feel like more cool. So during the summer months as well, like when we're feeling like hot, maybe inflamed, then hibiscus, if you drink it, can be really cooling for you. It's anti-inflammatory as well, which is nice. Um, and also, if you're someone who bleeds and you experience like cramps or that kind of discomfort, then hibiscus is also nice for that. And then tulsi leaves, so that's holy basil. I was gonna like show my plant, but it's looking a little like not cute. I get it from the farmers market every week. So tulsi, holy basil, um, I love Tulsi as well, because it is like it helps your nervous system, relax your nervous system. So if you experience like anxiety, if you're feeling anxious, nervous, then Tulsi is a great herb to really help you kind of bring you down. And it's also good for your immunity as well. And so I like Tulsi for the summer months, because I feel like, I don't know, we're still in this state of the world, obviously. So there's a lot going on. But also, I feel like summer, that energy is go, go, go. And although that can be exciting, I think sometimes our nervous system doesn't have a way to like calm down and relax. So that's why I enjoy Tulsi. And then strawberry. So I think strawberry is really nice to have in summer months as well because it's in season. I got it from the farmer's market And when I get it from the farmer's market, it's just such like more aromatic. Like I can smell it, it's so sweet. Um, and so I like strawberry because it's a sister plant to rose. So you can use rose if you don't have strawberry as well. You can replace it or add it if you wanted more. But strawberry and rose are sister plants. And so a lot of us are familiar with rose being good for like the heart center. So helping like heart conditions. So if you have like heart conditions, but also emotionally. So if you have, going through a heartbreak, are you grieving? Are you feeling, you're not able to express like, loving energy that you want? Then strawberry is a good herb and plant for that as well. And it's just so sweet and nice. I just feel like with the summertime and pleasure, it's just like, ooh, let me indulge. I feel like strawberries are really indulgent plants. Um, and then I love lemon because if you're new to trying herbs, like lemon is your best friend. Lemon and honey, because lemon and honey will bring that bitterness of some herbs kind of down. It'll kind of bring it to a taste that you might be more familiar with. And then lemon specifically, I like it because it like activates my digestive system. So also recently I've been drinking this tea mixture in the morning hot. So I enjoy hot beverages all year. It doesn't matter the weather, but you can also drink it hot if you like. But yeah, lemon is a good to like cut the bitterness to stimulate your digestive system. And sparkling water is for fun. It's to add, especially if you're to do mocktails, it's to add a little bit to boost like the flavor profile, I guess, to kind of make all the ingredients blend together. So it's like a blending agent, I'll say. So today I used a sparkling water, a sparkling drink. So it had pineapple and green tea. So it has like the benefits of green tea, which is really great. It has antioxidants, and then pineapple is also like a refreshing summer fruit. So that was why I chose this blend of herbs for our pleasure punch. So again, like Alyssa mentioned, sign up for our email list at soultrysisters.com, and you can learn more about the recipe, all the benefits of the herbs and things like that. And yeah, so I'll slowly start sharing more of my herbalism like recipes and tips and stuff as I continue my journey. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, let us know. We can do this more. This is
Yay.
really fun.
Yeah, and to close out our hangout, we'd love to know, Tony, from you, what are 3 ways right now we can incorporate herbalism in our soul care practices? You couldn't finish this hangout without talking about soul care and having some
Yes.
practical tools.
Yes, I love that because yes, herbalism is a part of my soul care, and I would enjoy for you all to do that as well. So, I would say the first thing I would encourage is for everyone to practice like when you're outside in nature, really just being present. So that is like really taking in the plants around you, whether that's like appreciating the beauty of them. Like when you have this different approach to plants around you, you experience more awe, like we mentioned at the beginning of
Mm.
the live. So you might even notice like the vibrancy of the plants around you. You might notice like how open or closed the plant is, or new leaves forming on your trees around you. So I would say, whether that's doing like nature walks or just like opening your eyes in a different way to just appreciate plants. I'd say that's the first thing I would say, because that kind of just transcends into different parts of your journey. I would say too, to when, so yeah, first is like look around to the plants around you. My second one would be in your food. Like Alyssa and I are plant based. And I feel like that's like an easy way, a practical way to incorporate herbalism into our soul care is through the food that we eat. So we're nourishing ourselves. And when you practice that gratitude when you're eating, when you're like, picking, things from your farmer's market or going to your store that you go to and really like choosing the like bell pepper or whatever you're
Mm.
gonna have, not just like putting whatever in your cart, but being like, ooh, this one's gonna look like really pretty on my plate. Um, and the third thing I was gonna say for incorporating herbalism in our soul care is something that's super simple that we're doing in our course now is saying gratitude, like words of affirmation and gratitude to like a cup of water. So, so if you have water, like I like to drink water, like when I first wake up, before I go to bed, like throughout the day. But before you drink it, to say an affirmation to your water. So if you say like, thank you, water, like thank you for nourishing me, for cleansing me, for supporting my body, for letting me flow, like you flow through nature, things like that, and then take a sip and it just tastes more refreshing. So there's a whole study on, water molecules and like what you say to it and how that affects like the actual molecules, like scientifically. But that's something I've been practicing as well, like showing gratitude to my water, to my food before I consume it. Because again, we're in relationship with nature, we're in relationship with our plants. So yeah, it's an energy exchange. And I swear to y'all, it changes like how it tastes. It's just like more refreshing, all that
Mhm.
good stuff. So I hope y'all, try that out. That's also something that's really practical. Like we're all drinking water. Well, I hope we are. um, and so like water is, like on the earth, it's like a big percentage of the earth. I forget the percent. And then also in our bodies, water is a very
Our
large percent.
bodies.
And then also when we were born, we first were in this amniotic fluid,
Yes.
which is water.
Right.
So like water also connects us back to self, back to our community. So that's a whole live as well about like the
And
elements. But
World
yes,
Pleasure
so
Day this
try it
year was
out.
about womb consciousness. So way to bring it full circle in this conversation. So we hope you all enjoy all the different resources we shared, shouting out World Pleasure Day, shouting out pleasure activism, shouting out hood herbalism, shouting out our community herbalist, Tony here. So
Thank
this
you.
has been such a great hangout. I love learning from you, Tony. And it was so nice to like have this encounter and conversation live for our Soultry fam to also receive this inspiration and knowledge. I hope you all are in awe of the different ways, or not even awe, but like I hope you all are inspired to try some of these practices. I for sure am going to try that mocktail later. So thank you
Yeah,
all for
so
joining
yes,
us.
check it out. Check out Iyane's worldpleasureday.com. She has a sonic ritual, so essentially a sound bath that's
Mhm.
amazing. Follow us on social media at Soultry Sisters, and we'll have all these pleasure herbalism, pleasure activism things that we will be sharing. But yes, enjoy, indulge in your pleasure, and I hope you all continue to take care of yourself and be well.
All right, bye.
Bye.